in Google Drive, I talked to you about how to record all of your receipts for your bills into Google Drive so you can avoid using paper. You don't have tons and tons of paper sitting around over the years where you're collecting all of these receipts from your power company, your phone company, and all that. You don't want that. Go to Google Drive and keep everything electronically in their system. They do a backup every night, and they have a ton of memory that they could give you for free. It doesn't cost anything. So utilize Google Drive. It's a very good tool for you. Okay, let's talk about checking. Let's go to this tab. Now, first of all, one of my students asked me one time, what makes a check a check? In other words, how come you can't write a check on just a regular piece of paper? The answer to that question is this right here, this number down here. This is called a micro number right here, MICR number, which stands for magnetic ink character recognition. This long number here makes a check a check. Now, this part of the check here is printed using just a standard ink. It could be black ink, red ink, blue ink, purple ink. It doesn't really matter. It's just a standard ink. After the check has been printed in a check printing machine, a check press, then you have to send the checks through a micro number printer to have the micro number printed on that check. This particular ink is different than regular ink. This ink has little pieces of metal that have been ground up and mixed in with the ink. It's a very fine powder substance of metal that's mixed in with the ink, which makes this a metallic ink. And it also makes it magnetic. A magnet can read the number, therefore. That's what makes a check a check. This first number here is your routing number, which indicates which bank your check is coming from. In this case, it's, let's see, Commerce Bank of Beverly Hills. The president is Milburn Drysdale, whoever that is. This number right here is your account number. And here they've got 4 zeros, meaning that this is just a demonstration check, really. It's for demonstration purposes only. There's no account number there. But your account number is supposed to be right here. Now, right here, this number is supposed to match the check number. 5719 should be right here. So you have your bank information here, your account number, and your check number. Now, as I said, most of my bills are paid online, so I do not use checks. However, you still want to have a checking account and a checkbook just in case you need a check for some reason or another. Okay, sometimes there are a few bills that I do pay using checks, so therefore you will need a checking account for that. Let's talk about how to fill out a check. You put the date here. You want to put this in your own handwriting. You've got to use ink. Do not use pencil. Avoid the use of blue ink because scammers can remove blue ink and replace it with whatever they want to put there. Use red or black. Those are the best types of ink to write a check with. And again, it's got to be in your own handwriting. Put the date right here. Put who the check is for. Put the number in dollar amount right here, $65,000. You also have to write out the number, $65,000 and 00/100. That means no cents. Okay, no pennies. Then for memo, you can put whatever you want to. This is just for your own benefit right here. You can put down your account number. You can put down what you actually use the check for. It's just for your benefit. Nobody else looks at that. Of course, your check is not a legal document until you sign the check. You do have to sign it right here. Now, they say that you can actually sign your signature right through the micro number and it will not hurt that magnetic ink. I don't like to do that, but you can, they say. I always like to try to make sure that my signature is falling just to the right of that magnetic number so I don't mess up that magnetic ink as it's being read by the scanner, okay? Now, again, so this is your check. This is how you write a check, okay? Your check, once it's written, you give it to the person you wrote it to. You either mail it to them or give it to them. They'll sign it on the back over here of this side right here. The check goes to the district, the Federal Reserve District Bank within your district to be cleared. Now, I'm going to have a video link underneath this where you can learn about the Federal Reserve Bank and what they do. It used to be a long time ago, years ago, when the person like Sam checked sample here, when they cashed the check, the Federal Reserve would send it back to you and you would keep it in a file. I used to have hundreds and hundreds of canceled checks. They don't do that anymore, thank goodness. They send you back an electronic photograph of that check. so that once again, we don't have to deal with all this paper. Let's go to balancing your checkbook. You do have to balance your checkbook once a month. You must do that. Okay, let's go to balancing your checkbook right here. Now, your checkbook is going to come with a register or ledger where you can keep up with who you're writing checks to. Let me show you a picture of one of them right here. Okay, this is a typical register that a bank would provide to you, and you just slip it right into your checkbook, and usually you have a leather or plastic cover. This is your actual checks down here. I like to use the register that was sent by the bank. It's a small one, but that's okay. I like to use it. Now, for my savings accounts, I do not use their registers. I buy my own, which are large registers. They're in books that are leather bound, and I could keep sometimes 10 or 15 years worth of information in one book. And then I could go back 5, 6, 7 years earlier just to see what had happened, what had transpired in that particular savings account. So again, you're certainly not required to use the registers that they give to you. You can use whatever register you want, but I like to use the register that they give to me, which looks just like this for my checking account. Okay, let's go back to balancing your checkbook. You do have to do this once a month. This is what a typical register looks like. You've got the number of your check. If it's a check that you're going to write for paying a bill, you put the number of that check here, which appears up here in the top right. See, there's a number right there. You put the date that you wrote that check. The transaction, if it's for your light bill or power bill or whatever, you write that down here. The payment, this is your how much. This is your debit. This is how much you actually wrote the check for. Any deposit that you put into the checking account should go right here. If there's a fee, you can put it right here if you want to, or you can just put it down here if you want to. This right here, this column with the check mark is very, very important. This is what you're going to use when you're balancing your checkbook. This is where I put a check mark as I'm checking my bank statement against my checkbook to make sure they match. Let's look at some scenarios. Okay, now again, these numbers are hypothetical. I've just pulled them off the top of my head. They don't match my budget, and they probably don't match your budget either, but they're just numbers that I pulled off the top of my head just so we have something to work with and we can use them as an example. Let's say that this is my checkbook right here. The only thing I forgot to put is a date column. That's okay. There's supposed to be a date column right there. But this is my checkbook right here. As you see, I started out with $1,500. Then check 001 was rent for $500, which brings the balance down to $1,000. Check 2 is cell phone, $50, which brings the balance to $950. Check 3 is auto fuel, $65. Cable TV, $48, and utilities, $110, which is going to bring my balance down to $727. The bank has mailed a statement. This is the statement that was sent by the bank. First of all, again, I forgot the date column. The date column will be there. The only thing that will not show up is the description column, because they don't care what the check was written for. You notice here I have checks for rent and cell. If I did not use a check for like cell phone, I'll simply skip that number, and instead I'll put a line right there to indicate that was paid online. Let me go back and show you what I'm talking about. This is your ledger right here. If I'm paying online, if I'm paying a bill online, instead of putting a check number here, I'll just simply put a line right here indicating that that was paid online. Even though it's paid online, you still have to put it in your checkbook so that you have a record of having paid it. Okay, now, this is a statement that was sent to me by the bank. First of all, I can immediately see when I sit down to balance my checkbook, I can immediately see that there's a difference. 777 is what the bank says I have, but my checkbook says I have $727. So they're not matching. Now, you cannot ignore this. You've got to figure out where the discrepancy is. You have to figure out why these two numbers are not matching. You do this once a month, and probably you have seen your parents doing this once a month in some room somewhere where they have their checkbook, their computer, their bills, and they're sitting down once a month and they're balancing their checkbook, and they're also paying their bills. Now, some of your parents may actually call you in and show you what they're doing. Some of your parents may not. So that's why it's important to pay attention here so you'll know what's going on once a month. Okay, so again, your statement is not matching your checkbook. What I'd like to do, first of all, is simply take this number here, 777, subtract this number, 727, from 777, which is going to give me a number, and in this case, it's going to give me a number that is $50. That means that I know that there's $50 that's missing here. The bank says I have $50 more than my checkbook says I have. Pause the video at this point, try to figure out what's going on. Okay, let's come back. Can you see what's going on? It's clear now. Okay, so obviously check number 2 for your cell phone is not showing up in the statement. As far as the bank is concerned, that $50 is still in your account, which means your account is 777. The reason for that is because the person you wrote the check to for your cell phone has not cashed it yet. It's called an outstanding check. Your bank actually gives you a form you can fill out on the back of your register to try to figure out these outstanding checks. I don't even bother with all that stuff. It's far too complicated to mess with. I just simply put a little check mark beside the 777, indicating that I have okayed that number and that I'm clear on that, and I know that there's $50 outstanding. No big deal. Next month, that $50 will show up and everything will balance out. So you don't have to write it down. You just make a mental note of the fact that there's $50 missing. Oh, by the way, as I am balancing my checkbook, I will put checks right here. Now, if there is an outstanding check, I will put a circle. I'll put a circle right here indicating that that check is still outstanding, and it's got to be averaged in to the new balance for the next month. Let me give you another scenario right here. Okay, again, this is my checkbook right here. This right here is a statement that the bank has sent to me. Now, once again, they're not matching. Sometimes, if I'm in a hurry, this is really aggravating. If I just want to get this done and get out of here, it's very aggravating when my statement is not matching my checkbook. At other times, if I have a little extra time, I kind of enjoy the mystery involved. It's like you've got to stop and try to figure out where is the discrepancy. Sometimes it's kind of fun to do that. You know, it depends upon whether you're in a hurry or not. Okay, but in this case, obviously there's 776.50 according to the bank. That's how much you have in your account. Whereas over here, they said on my checkbook, I indicated here that I have 727. The bank says I have more than I actually have over here. Let's try to figure out what's going on. Pause the video, take a look at this, get your calculator out, try to figure out how come these two things are not matching. Don't forget, the first thing you can do is simply subtract 727 from 776.50. That's going to show you how much of a discrepancy is there, and it's also going to give you the number that you're looking for. You're trying to figure out where did that amount of money go to. Okay, pause the video right here. Okay, so let's come back. Now, when you subtract 776.50 or subtract 727 from 776.50, you're coming up with $49.50. Now, as I'm balancing my checkbook over here, don't forget, I am putting check marks right here. When I come back here, I can clearly see, first of all, check 2 right here is not showing up over here. So that's $50 right there. That's in my bank account. And that's because it's a outstanding check. The person I wrote it to has not cashed it yet. The other thing I could see is that the bank has charged me a fee of $1, which State Employee Credit Union will do. The other thing they've given me is interest. And I have actually not added that to my checkbook right here. So what I could do is I can go back here and I could add those. I could subtract $1 and I could add 50 cents to my running balance. Then from that number, I could simply add back to my balance here $50 because that's an outstanding check. And the number is going to come to 776.50. Once I see that number, I'm just going to put a check mark right here. I'm going to put a check right there indicating that that is okay. Let me go ahead and do that right now. Okay, I'm going to put a check mark right here like that, indicating that I have okayed that number and I know where the discrepancy is, and that's all I need to do. I don't have to write down the fact that there's an outstanding check. I don't have to write this down anywhere. With this, I do have to record it, these two things here in my ledger book. But once I put that check there, that means that I'm okay that both of these are actually balanced because I found the discrepancy. My statement, even though it says 776.50 and my checkbook says 727, even though they're not the same numbers, they're balancing out once I account for the $50 check that is outstanding. And once I account for the bank fee, $1, and the interest, it is matching. And that means that my checkbook is balanced. Again, if you have questions, please send me an email. That's it for this video. And I'll see you on the next video.